Hey y'all, welcome to the video. Before we get to the real topic, I just wanted to use this section to give a little update on where I've been. But if you don't care, I totally get it. So here's a timestamp to give you what you actually came here for. Thanks for watching. For anyone else who might still be here, hi, and thank you. This section was recorded long after the script for this video was recorded, so I apologize if the audio quality is trash. I just really wanted to fit it in here because I didn't want to dedicate a separate video to this random nonsense. I'll also try to be super quick because I don't want to sit here trying to excuse myself for damn near abandoning the channel. I should have had enough common sense to update you guys via the community tab or something, but here we are. I always told myself that I would never get too personal on this channel, mainly because I don't think any of you guys want to hear any of that. And this channel has always been meant to be a creative outlet for me to talk about the things that interest me and to connect with other K-pop fans. I don't really know anyone in my real life that listens to K-pop or watches K-dramas or has any general interest in most of the things that I like, so this channel has been a total godsend for me. I've come across some great people along the way, some great people who've had some genuine insight and intellect, and who I've engaged in some really informative conversations with. That's the kind of audience that I've sought out to cultivate with this channel, and I think I've pretty much succeeded here. Y'all are some great people, and that's one of the things that initially made me hesitant to start this channel to begin with, because K-pop fans have long since carried the reputation of being immature, entitled, whiny, and super aggressive. And I was totally expecting to get that type of treatment when I started this channel, so I'm very happy to say that I've gotten such a great reception from some really mature and well-spoken people. And to those people, I say thank you. Thank you very much. You're awesome, and I'm very grateful that you guys continue to rock with me. Now, as for where I've been, first off, my microphone conked out, and for whatever reason, it pretty much just told me to go kick rocks. So I've had to get a new one, which I now have, and hopefully the audio quality on the channel should be far more crisp and smooth than it was before. Also, I'm currently a full-time student with a full-time job, and this unfortunately has forced me to take a brief hiatus from K-pop and pretty much all of my hobbies. I've been so out of the loop these past few months. Imagine my surprise this morning when I learned that Shin Se-dong Tiger has sadly passed. Karina's being forced to apologize for doing normal shit that most 20-something-year-old people do. Chungha has finally made a comeback, and iChillin' might disband. Like, damn, I was only gone for like a month, and so much has happened. So I knew that I needed to get off my ass and get back to my channel because the content has been far more sparse than I wanted it to be. And I know some of you are probably like, well, sis, you started the channel. You should have been prepared for the actual responsibility of managing it. And yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I told myself that I would put out like 2 videos a week when I initially started this channel. And at first that was doable. But since then, I've completely fumbled the bag, and that is fully my fault. So I vow here and now to get better at time management and to increase my content output. So, expect to see far more content from me, especially now that I finally got my schedule organized. Again, thank you all so much for being patient and for sticking around through my bullshit. And alright, I'm done talking now, so let's get on to the video. K-pop stans have an interesting vernacular when it comes to groups they like and the groups they hate. Whether it be terms like nugu or flop, there are certain words that have become mainstays in conversation when it comes to K-pop. Yet, despite these words being used so often, I believe it's come to a point when stans use them interchangeably as insults for pretty much every situation, even if the context in which they choose to use them make no actual sense. For example, when ITZY first debuted back in 2019, many were hailing them as 4th-gen leaders when hit songs like Dala Dala, Icy, and Wannabe instantly put them on the map. Now, 4 years later, ITZY's music has somewhat polarized the public in such a significant way that many stans have now decided to start calling them flops. Though I don't agree with slapping the flop label on them, or any group for that matter, when you take a look at how their songs chart now versus how they did during their rookie years, it wouldn't be a total lie to say that their music doesn't get quite as much attention as it used to. Regardless of this little hiccup with their inconsistent charting, ITZY is still not a flopping group in my opinion. Charting isn't what pays the bills for any group. Sure, it's always nice to have public recognition, but it certainly isn't the most important thing. What's most important above all else in every industry is money. And ITZY still sells a shit ton of albums. They likely make most of their profit from touring anyway. Though I obviously know nothing about the members' finances, I'm willing to bet that none of them are struggling to put food on the table. So, with the term flop being used in such a flippant way on a daily basis, its definition has definitely been diluted. Now, the word flop gets thrown at pretty much any group for any reason. And this isn't the only term that K-pop stans love to misuse. Terms like all-rounder, blank and friends, pick-me girl, and ace are also used inaccurately to either uplift a group above all others or, in more sinister cases, to tear a group down. One such term I've seen floating around over the years is the strangest one to me, mainly because I have no idea why people even consider it an insult to begin with. This term is simply what I like to call the coworker syndrome. Coworker syndrome is basically when members in a group seem to have a relationship that's very surface level. They don't behave like typical besties and seem generally disinterested in each other beyond the times when they have to interact with one another, such as during promotional periods. Members of these groups rarely ever joke around or get playful with one another in a way that would even suggest that they're friends. Now, this doesn't mean that they hate each other, it's more so that they seem very neutral towards one another. It's mainly how some of you might behave around your coworkers. Sure, you'll be cordial towards one another, but you'll never see yourself hanging out with them or even talking to them outside of work. One group that's gotten a lot of criticism for this is IVE. Now, IVE has already had that whole Wonyoung, Yujin, and friends accusation put on them at debut, and many were convinced that Starship only cared about Wonyoung and Yujin, while the other members simply faded into the abyss like background noise behind them. I personally don't believe that that's the case if it ever was, but that's also a different video for a different day because going into it now would likely make this video 2 hours long. So, let's get back to the coworker syndrome and why it's been used to insult IVE. As a group, some believe that IVE have absolutely no chemistry with each other, with some even complaining that the group's variety content is boring and awkward because of it. Personally, I think people who believe this might be expecting IVE to be something that they aren't instead of accepting them as they are. Just because the members aren't all over each other 24/7 doesn't mean that they aren't friends. It simply means that their chemistry is much more laid back. Every group is not going to have the same kind of chaotic energy as groups like Dreamcatcher, LE SSERAFIM, or IDOL, especially when you have a group that has more introverts than extroverts. And mostly everyone in IVE seems somewhat introverted. IVE has also been a much more chill group that occasionally has chaotic moments, but is not really part of their identity as individuals. I don't believe that they need to be bouncing all over the walls, yelling and cracking jokes to convince people that they're friends, especially if it's not who they actually are. Obviously, I don't know any of these women personally, nor do I know how they treat each other behind closed doors. Maybe they're more affectionate towards each other in private, I don't know. Either way, it isn't any of my business. In fact, none of the groups who exude this kind of soft-spoken aura have anything to prove to me or anyone else. So when insults like IVE are just coworkers come up, I just think to myself, why the hell is that being used as an insult? These women are literally coworkers. That's the weirdest and most half-assed insult I've ever heard. For those of you who have a job, think about your own everyday lives. Most of us only have one goal in mind when we go into work: to make money. Sure, you may eventually become close to some of the people you work with, but let's be honest, you aren't always going to end up developing any sort of personal relationship with most of them. As long as you get the job done, it's not a requirement for you to be everyone's friend. The bare minimum is for you to respect your coworkers and be willing to set aside any differences in the name of teamwork so you can all get paid and go home happy. So even if IVE does only consider each other as coworkers, why does it matter? As long as everyone is in the studio and practice room when they're supposed to be, and none of them are openly hateful or rude towards each other, then why does it matter if they aren't best friends? Unless we hear otherwise, there's probably no actual animosity between any of the members. And that sense of awkward detachment you may think there is likely just a little thing called workplace professionalism. And no, I'm not saying that groups who are more extroverted and more outwardly affectionate towards each other aren't professional. It simply means that different groups excel at different things. Some have great vocalists or dancers, and others have variety queens with larger-than-life personalities. It's seriously unrealistic to expect every group to have the same copy-paste personalities that other groups have, because if they did try to force more chaotic energy for the sake of entertainment, then they would most likely be accused of being fake or trying too hard. And Lord knows how much people love calling Wonyoung fake. Let's look at a different example. With a group like IDOL, as a fan, you go into their variety content always expecting something unhinged to happen. These women are some of the most hyperactive people I've ever seen in K-pop. From that time that Shua accidentally broke a table on V-Live, to that time Miyeon nearly had a panic attack when she had to dance by herself on Amazing Saturday, or even that time when Soyeon almost died of cringe after being forced to do Aegyo. And don't even get me started on Uki or Minnie. Uki is a whole ass variety show by herself. I still rewatch certain episodes of Learnway anytime I need a laugh. And Minnie's facial expressions have gotten me to laugh without her even having to say anything at all. These are the kind of candid moments you expect from IDOL because it feels genuine, like they aren't forcing the comedy, instead just allowing it to happen naturally. The same thing goes for Dreamcatcher and Le Sserafim. They're all just naturally explosive in a way that creates comedy. Every group has a different dynamic and different ways of displaying it. So while IDOL's sense of humor is far less subtle and more in your face, IVE excels more at dry humor. Sometimes the funniest moments occur between them randomly in the middle of a quiet conversation when you least expect it. That kind of humor works best for them and their quieter personalities in a way that it likely wouldn't work for other groups. Clearly, some people prefer their demure temperaments, mainly because this kind of energy is actually super on brand with their concept. So I definitely understand that everyone has different tastes when it comes to what they prefer with group dynamics. But to call a group boring simply because you personally don't find them appealing isn't the route to go. That is, of course, your opinion, and I won't criticize or try to change your mind, but keep in mind that what might be boring to you just may be endearing to someone else. With IVE, they've seemed to have gotten far more comfortable with each other since debut. Even Liz has stated that it takes a while for her to warm up to new people, which makes me wonder if any of the members, aside from Wonyoung and Yujin, were really that acquainted with each other when they debuted. I don't know if any of them trained together, so I can't confidently speak on what IVE's pre-debut energy looked like. Let's also note that none of us truly know any of these idols beyond what they choose to show us when the cameras are rolling. Perhaps even the groups that you believe to be the closest might just be putting on an act for the cameras as well. Regardless of whether IVE considered themselves close friends or not, I think it's best to not speculate or assume, and to stop acting as if groups who are just co-workers is an insult.